Miss Awful by Arthur Cavanaugh. The whole episode of Miss Awful began for the Clarks at their dinner table one Sunday afternoon. Young Roger Clark was explaining why he could go to Central Park with his father instead of staying home to finish his homework. Miss Wilson, his teacher, wouldn't be at school tomorrow, so who'd know the difference? She has to take care of a crisis, Roger explained. It's in Omaha. What is? His older sister Elizabeth inquired. For a kid in third grade, Roger, you talk dopey. You fail to make sense. Roger ignored the insult. His sister was a condition of life he had to live with, like lions or snakes, poisonous ones. Teetering, as always, on the tilt-back chair, feet wrapped around the legs, he continued. Till Miss Wilson gets back, we're having some other teacher. She flew to Omaha yesterday. He pushed some peas onto his plate and was silent a moment. I hope her plane don't crash, he said. Roger's mother patted his head. A lively, outgoing youngster, as noisy and rambunctious as any 8-year-old, he had another side, tender and soft, which worried about people. Let the blind man who sold pencils outside the 5 and 10 store on Broadway be absent from his post, and Roger worried that a catastrophe had overtaken him. When Mrs. Loomis, a neighbor of the Clarks in the Greenwich Village brownstone, had entered the hospital, Roger's anxious queries had not ceased until she was discharged. And recently, there was the cat which had nestled in the downstairs doorway at night. Roger had carried down saucers of milk, clucking with concern. Is the cat run away? Don't it have a home? Virginia Clark assured her son, You'll have Miss Wilson safely back before you know it. It's nice that you care so. Roger beamed with relief. Well, I like Miss Wilson. She's fun. Last week, for instance, when Tommy Miller got tired of staying in his seat lay down on the floor. He did what? Roger's father was roused from his post-dinner torpor. Sure, pretty soon the whole class was lying down. And you know what Miss Wilson did? If you'll notice, Mother, Elizabeth interjected, he hasn't touched a single pea. Miss Wilson, she lay down on the floor too, Roger went on ecstatically. She said we'd all have a rest. It was perfectly normal in the middle of the day. That's what I love about St. Jeff's. It's a fun school. Fun, snorted his sister. School isn't supposed to be a fun fest. It's supposed to be filling that empty noodle of yours. Miss Wilson got down on the floor? Mr. Clark repeated. He had met Roger's teacher on occasion. She had struck him as capable, but excessively whimsical. She was a large woman to be getting down on floors, thought Mr. Clark. What did the class do next? He asked. Oh, we lay there a while, and then we got up and did a Mexican hat dance, Roger answered. It was swell. I'm sure not every day is as frolicsome, said Mrs. Clark, slightly anxious. She brought in dessert, a chocolate mousse. Roger's story sounded typical of St. Jeffrey's. Not that she was unhappy with his school. It was a small private institution. While it might be called overly permissive, it projected a warm, homey atmosphere, which Mrs. Clark found appealing. It was church-affiliated, which she approved of, and heaven knows its location just a few blocks away from the brownstone was convenient. True, Roger's scholastic progress was not notable. His spelling, for example, remained atrocious. Friendly as St. Jeffrey's was, Mrs. Clark sometimes did wish. Roger attacked dessert with a lot more zest than he had shown the peas. So, can I go to the park with you, Dad? I've only got spelling left, and who cares about that? Before his mother could comment, he was up from the table racing toward the coat closet. Okay, Dad. I didn't say you could go. I didn't even say I'd take you, Mr. Clark objected. He happened at that moment to glance at his waistline and reflect that a brisk walk might do him some good. He pushed back his chair. All right, but the minute we return, it's to your room to finish your spelling. Aw, thanks, Dad. Can we go to the boat pond first? We will not, cried Elizabeth, elbowing into the closet. We'll go to the sheep meadow first. Roger was too happy to argue. Pulling on his jacket, he remarked, Gee, I wonder what the new teacher will be like. Ready for your coat, Dad? It was just as well that he gave the matter no more thought. In view of events to come, Roger was entitled to a few carefree hours. Monday morning at school started off with the perfect normalcy. It began exactly like any other school morning. Elizabeth had long since departed for the girls' school she attended uptown when Mrs. Clark set out with Roger for the short walk to St. Jeff's. She didn't trust him with the Fifth Avenue traffic yet. They reached the school corner, and Roger skipped eagerly away from her. The sidewalk in front of the school already boasted a large, jostling throng of children, and his legs couldn't hurry Roger fast enough to join them. Indeed, it was his reason for getting to school promptly, to have time to play before the 8:45 bell. Roger's school bag was well equipped for play. As usual, he'd packed a supply of baseball cards for trading opportunities, a spool of string in case anybody brought a kite, a water pistol for possible use in the lavatory, and a police whistle for sheer noise value. Down the Greenwich Village sidewalk he galloped, shouting the names of his third-grade friends as he picked out faces from the throng. "Hiya, Tommy! Hiya, Bruce! Hi, Steve! You bring your trading cards?" By the time the 8:45 bell rang, St. Jeff's used a cowbell, which was one of its many homey touches. Roger had finished a game of tag, traded several baseball cards, and was launched in an exciting jump the hydrant contest. Miss Gillis, the school secretary, was in charge of the bell, and she had to clang it extensively before the student body took notice. Clomping up the front steps, they spilled into the downstairs hall and headed in various directions. Roger's class swarmed up the stairs in rollicking spirits. Tommy Miller, Bruce Reeves, Joy Lambert, the girls, forming an untidy rear flank behind them all, shrilled with laughter. It wasn't until the front ranks reached the third-grade classroom that the first ominous note was struck. "Hey, what's going on?" Jimmy Moore demanded, first to observe the changed appearance of the room. The other children crowded behind him in the doorway. Instead of a cozy semicircle, "as though we're seated around a glowing hearth," Miss Wilson had described it, the desks and chairs had been rearranged in stiff, rigid rows. "Gee, look, the desks are in rows," commented Midge Fuller, a plump little girl who stood blocking Roger's view. Midge was a child given to unnecessary statements. "It's raining today," she would volunteer to her classmates as all of them arrived in slickers. Or, "there's the lunch bell, gang." The point to Roger wasn't that the desks had been rearranged. The point was why. As if in answer, he heard two hands clap behind him, as loud and menacing as thunder. "What's this? What's this?" barked a stern, raspish voice. "You are not cattle milling in a pen. Enough foolish gaping. Come, form into lines." Heads turned in unison and mouths fell agape. The children of St. Geoffrey's third grade had never formed into two lines of any sort, but this was not the cause of their shocked inertia. Each was staring with a sensation similar to that of drowning at the owner of the raspish voice. She was tall and straight as a ruler, and was garbed in an ancient tweed suit whose skirt dipped nearly to the ankles. She bore a potted plant in one arm and Miss Wilson's roll book in the other. Rimless spectacles glinted on her bony nose, and her hair was gray like a witch's, skewered on a bun, and there was no question that she had witch's eyes. Roger had seen those same eyes leering from the pages of Hansel and Gretel. Identical they were. He gulped at the terrible presence. "Form lines, I said. Girls in one, boys in the other." Poking, prodding, patrolling back and forth, the new teacher kneaded the grade into position and ruefully inspected the result. "Sloppiest I've ever beheld. March!" She clapped time with her hands, and the stunned ranks trooped into the classroom. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Girls on the window side, boys on the wall. Stand at your desks. Remove your outer garments. You, little miss, with the vacant stare. What's your name? Speak up, I won't have mumblers. Jane Douglas. Well, Jane Douglas, you will be coat monitor. Collect the garments a row at a time and hang them neatly in the cloakroom. Did you hear me, child? Stop staring. Normally slow-moving, Jane Douglas became a whirl of activity, charging up and down the aisles, piling coats on her arms. The new teacher tugged at her tweed jacket. Class be seated, hands folded on desks, she barked, and there was immediate compliance. Next, she paraded to the windows and installed the potted plant on the sill. Her witch's hands fussed with the green leaves, straightening, pruning. Plants and children belong in classrooms, she declared, spectacles sweeping over the rows. Can someone suggest why? There was total silence, punctured by a deranged giggle quickly suppressed. Very well, I will tell you. Plants and children are living organisms. Both will grow with proper care. Repeat, proper. Not indulgent fawning or giving in to whims. Scrupulosity. With another tug at the jacket, she strode ruler straight to the desk at the front of the room. I am Miss Orville. Orville, she spelled. You are to use my name in replying to all questions. At the back of the room, Jimmy Moore whispered frantically to Roger. What did she say her name is? Miss Orville rapped her desk. Attention, please. No muttering in the back. She cleared her voice and resumed. Prior to my retirement, I taught boys and girls for 46 years, she warned. I am beyond trickery, so I advise you to try none. You are to be in my charge until the return of Miss Wilson, however long that may be. She clasped her hands in front of her and trained her full scrutiny on the rows. Since I have no knowledge of your individual abilities, perhaps a look at the weekend homework will shed some light. Miss Wilson left me a copy of the assignment. You have all completed it, I trust. Take out your notebooks, please. At once, I say. Roger's head spun dizzily around. He gaped at the monstrous tweed figure in dismay. Book bags were being clicked open and notebooks drawn out. What was he to do? He had gone to his room after the outing in the park yesterday, but alas, it had not been to complete his assignment. He watched horrified as the tweed figure proceeded among the aisles and inspected notebooks. What did she say her name was? Awful? Was that it? Miss Awful? Biting his lip, he listened to her scathing comments. You call this chicken scrawl penmanship? Rip! A page was torn out and thrust at its owner. Redo it at once. It assaults the intelligent. Then, moving on, what is this maze of misspelled words? Not a composition, I trust. Ill-spelled words. He was in it for sure. The tweed figure was heading down his aisle. She was 3 desks away. No escaping it. Roger opened his book bag. It slid from his grasp and with a crash fell to the floor. Books, pencil case spilled out. Baseball cards, the water pistol, the police whistle, the spool of string. Ah! Crowed Miss Awful instantly at his desk and scooping up the offending objects. We have come to play, have we? And she fixed her witch's gaze right on him.